So, joining us tonight on Zoom, I have Mike and Joel and Rannigan. And here in the Zendo with me, I have Kimberly and Joe and our visitor from the West, Shinma, Mark Doma, and Chris and Jill. So, having said that, let's chant in and then we'll get down to it. And unsurpassed, penetrating, and perfect Dharma is rarely met with, even in 100,000 million kalpas. Having it to see and listen to remember and accept, I vow to taste the truth of the Tathagata's words. So we're going to look at chapter 7 of Ben's book tonight. The line is, within one is all, within many is one. Interestingly enough, Ben says, if you want to sum up Huayan teachings in a single line, this is as good as it gets. He refers to this line farther on in the text as a dharani, which is a line or two of a sutra or a teaching that encapsulates the whole teaching and therefore can be chanted as well. Certainly this would be a good one. He starts, interestingly enough, talking about Tomoe Katagiri, and she was basically the sewing teacher who taught Karen Wyken, and is quite well known and quite famous. So talks about how she continually showed that everything mattered in everything that she did. He then goes on to say, because phenomena are the teaching, whatever phenomena are brought up, inexhaustible teachings are included. That really gets repeated over and over again in this chapter. And he talks later. I'm sorry if I just want to make sure I didn't miss something here. He then talks about how he was he was with her and they were having a conversation. She was making tea and he was going to quote a line from the Metta Sutta. She put everything down and he said, she faced me with her whole being, relaxed, poised, and alert. This is, for me at least, what I envision being able to do if I'm truly I'm sorry, I'm losing I'm not sure. I lost the track of the word that I wanted to use. It is, I think, how we all should face everything when we are in Zazen, to be completely relaxed, poised, and alert. It reminds me several years ago when I attended a talk by Chiazan, the thing that he said, which I think was from Bob Brown, was, my teaching is just receive. And I see in that line about Tomoe that idea. She was paying close attention and just receiving the teaching. The next thing he talks about is the teaching of the 10 coins, which I found a wonderful metaphor. And I'm just going to read that short passage. If you have 10 coins, any one of them completely contains all 10. For if you remove that one, there is no 10. Within the 10 coins, each one is completely contained in the 10. For if the 10 were gone, so too would be the one. More subtly, if part of the 10 were gone, the one would no longer be the exact same one it was. It wouldn't be the one that is thus in this particular relational context. And then he says, if a bowl of soup costs 10 coins, the one as a part of the 10 coins is sufficient. As part of 9, it is not. He talks some more about money and says, let us practice looking at money not just in terms of what we have and what we can get, but how this money impacts the whole and hence the particular individuals within the whole. He talks about how we ultimately agree on what a coin or what a bill is worth. But even those are not absolutes. Our shared agreements about money often hide the fact that within the whole of our economy, many individual people work all day for just enough money to live beneath a freeway overpass. These shared agreements can make it seem like someone who doesn't have a job deserves to live under the freeway overpass. And then Ben says, seeing that one is all, we can do much better than that. He talks about the difference that a traffic ticket can make depending on what you have. If you have $1 million in the bank, a traffic ticket's an annoyance, but it's not a very big problem to pay. If you're working a job that pays minimum wage, obviously that traffic ticket is going to make a whole lot more impact on you. From there, he goes back to the idea that any particular expression of the Dharma contains the whole Dharma, and the whole Dharma upholds or maintains each particular expression. And from there, from that, he talks about that really this is one vehicle, just like the Lotus Sutra talks about, meaning that any one tradition includes all traditions. All Dharma teachings are included and upheld not as one monolithic entity, but in their distinctness. He tells the story about Mushin Patrici Keda, who was a Korean Zen teacher and was chanting one of the Wilhelm Sutras. and was asked by a student, why are we chanting a Hawaiian mantra? This, uh, that isn't Zen practice. She then rechanted the Dharani and said, how is this not Zen practice? Zen practice means doing what you are doing with your whole being, and that within each Dharma are all Dharmas. It made me think of Bendoa. To do everything wholeheartedly. He gives us some examples then of starting with the mindfulness of breathing sutra, and where the Buddha said that all the fruits of the path can be realized through mindfulness of the breath. He talks about chanting. I won't even try the first chant, but the Nembutsu, which many people chant, is also an expression not only of the chant itself, but of the whole Dharma. He talks about the Mingyur Rinpoche, who talks about how each of the various Tibetan methods can complete the whole way. And finally, he talks about Fazang, who talks about not only the Mahayana teachings of the Vinla Sutra, but also upholding the meticulous precepts, and that this too is an expression of everything. I like his little story about Satsujo, who was a young Japanese woman who is described as too spirited that her parents were afraid she was too spirited to find a spouse. So they asked her to pray to Kanan, Avalokiteshvara, day and night, which she does. And her father then looks in on her and sees her sitting on the Lotus Sutra and says, what are you doing? And she says, how is this wonderful sutra different from my ass? And of course, it isn't. From there, he goes to Mahaprajapati's poem, which is about her awakening. She saw that each thing contained the whole, and the whole is whole only because each thing is distinct. I'm going to read the poem, which I very much enjoyed. Actually, I'm going on and on here. Any questions or any comments before I read your poem? Okay, that's fine. Then we will go to the poem. I realized I hadn't stopped to ask. So, I have been mother, son, father, brother, grandmother. Knowing nothing of the truth, I journeyed on. But I have seen the Blessed One. This is my last body, and I will not go from birth to birth again. Look at the disciples all together, their energy, their sincere effort. This is homage to the Buddha. Maya gave birth to Gautama for the sake of us all. She has driven back the pain of the sick and the dying. Mahaprajapati saw that her suffering and the end of her suffering contain a web of lives. She saw that her choice to be a celibate nun, her awakening to an end to birth and death, the choice to apply diligent effort to the way, and the courageous choice of Maya to birth a child in a place where death from childbirth was common. These each uphold and maintain the Dharma, the possibility that we may all find freedom in what Dr. King called our single garment of destiny. This is a very powerful chapter to me. I have been personally just working on this idea of these two ideas coming together. The saying, one of the sayings that I've loved about Buddhism from the beginning is not two, not one. And I think this is another expression of that teaching. That every Dharma that we see contains everything. And how do we do that? How do we see that? I'm still struggling and working with that one, but I'd certainly love to hear your comments at this point. Chris.
Yeah, I'll just chime in with what some of my thoughts were. One of them was, this is a great reintroduction or reiteration of the form is emptiness and emptiness.
Yeah.
That one contains the other.
Yeah.
They each contain each other, and they're all complete. And the ongoing concepts of throwing ourselves into our practice wholeheartedly in whatever we do. And it turns out, I think, based on this chapter, that it doesn't even so much matter which form we're following. We could be chanting, we could be meditating, we could be doing an act of kindness, whatever it is. But all of these various forms, if they're partaken in a wholehearted way, they all matter. They're all the Dharma.
Yeah.
And they all are interrelated and contain each other. So this chapter was, beautifully stated all of those things.
Yeah, I really thought so. I enjoyed this chapter very much, and and of course, what I find the hardest thing about about this chapter is our whole idea of whether we're looking at the absolute or the relative, and the ideas we have are relative about both of those. And so we don't, and we certainly can't within our thinking mind understand any of this. It has to come from intimacy with it. And the intimacy, of course, comes with letting go of the self. But I totally agree with everything you said. Joe.
I too really enjoyed this chapter. I do have a question, something that just stumped me here in the middle of page 64, about 2/3 the way down. I'll read it. Fa Zhang teaches that the Huayan practice includes upholding the meticulous precepts of the early Buddhist schools while embodying the Mahayana teachings of the Vimalakirti Sutra on freedom from conventional ethical norms that can stifle collective liberation. I didn't quite get how we need to be free from conventional ethical norms, which can stifle collective liberation. I mean, having a good ethical foundation and ethical self-discipline is our second paramita. But yet he's saying we've got to free ourselves from those ethical norms, which can stifle collective liberation. So I'm not getting that. Can you?
Well, I read that as saying that if you grasp ethical norms, in the same way that Buddhism would, talk about good and bad are relative. So ethical norms can be relative too, in terms of, we talk about, somebody's chasing somebody and they ask which way did they go, and you lie and tell them the wrong way. Because, you see them, you're afraid they're going to be hurt or something. So that's how I see it. I certainly would encourage you to ask Dean about that too. But that's my interpretation of that, is that it's like everything else. If you grasp it, you'll lose it.
Well, ethical norms
you have to.
Part.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Ethical norms are a part of our conventional dualistic thinking. So I guess we do have to free ourselves from all of that kind of stuff.
Brannigan. Oh, you're muted.
I have a question
Sure.
about ethical norms.
Mm-hmm.
In the sense that it's not saying Buddhist ethical norms, it's just saying ethical norms. So I can think back in the 80s, and I had a very dear friend of mine who was gay, and that was not considered moral by many people. And I didn't believe that that was correct. And that is what this makes me think of, that holding on to things that hurt other people.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, is that the same thing or not? That's my question.
Oh, no, I do think it is. I think that's a good example of what I was talking about. I mean, you can get stuck on, there's all sorts of ethical norms depending on who you're talking to. And if you, again, my guess is, that's probably not a good way to say this, that it's really about skillful means. It's really about being present to the situation and understanding whether that ethical norm is really the way to go at that point, or whether you violate it, whether you say, no, this isn't who I am, this isn't who I'm going to be. So
Thank you.
You're welcome. Kimberly, Mike, I'll get to you in a sec.
I think this really goes with her current, what happened today, the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Wow. I'm not one to, I didn't even know who he was, because I don't really partake in the national news or to see these characters on the other side of the political spectrum. But I believe that this really pertains to what just came out of my mouth, the other side of the political spectrum. And I mean, that's an extreme side of the political spectrum.
Yeah.
But then to bring it back to the very topic of this book as a whole, this interwoven, it's so unfortunate that we are living in a time, and this isn't new. I mean, this is ancient history, but here it is. It's time in the future, time presently in this moment, and in the past is all interwoven. And it is just so unfortunate that we are living in a time where people are, and I can fall into this as well, two-dimensional. When you hear rhetoric, and as far as Charlie, I read a lot of his quotes. I'm like, this guy is just like, whoa. Right? And the irony that he gets shot dead when he's talking about the gun violence.
Yeah, and that some
And
people might
approving
have to
of-
die.
It's just.
He said that.
Yeah, exactly. And it's somehow it goes with that point he just brought up. Because here's my point, and I'll get to the connection I'm making so it's like this tendency to just these people out there are so two-dimensional, and I can speak for myself in that, and yet my very first reaction was like, this man was a human being.
I'm sorry.
A human being.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a young father.
Mm-hmm.
And this whole world is made up of people with all thoughts and ideas and opinions and violence and all of it. And
it's all in
here
there.
we are. Yeah.
It's all in there.
So I'll bow out.
Mike.
Find my microphone here. Yeah, to kind of piggyback off that, part of what connected with me for this chapter was the student saying that, well, this isn't Zen practice, because, I went through a phase, and probably am still going through it, where I was very keen on, Soto Zen is the thing, and anything else, bah, or it just isn't as good. And there you are discriminating, which kind of defeats the whole thing. But in terms of ethical systems, the challenge that Buddhism writ large raises to us, and what Joe was talking about with the Charlie Kirk thing is a pretty key thing, because I definitely went through some reactions and was reflecting on those reactions. So I don't know if anybody else was, but and just being surprised at trying to be rooted in kindness and compassion and empathy to all beings, because good Lord Almighty, there's so much suffering out there. But it's very, like all of it, it's always very timely, and you can find Dharma lessons anywhere. But then, it's all Zen practice, and doing anything, whether it's just listening or just being present with your goofy, in my case, mixed up emotions in this time we're all going through. So it just, this chapter in particular, and that piece in particular at this time, was just immense, big flashing, light that I needed to see to like pump the brakes there. So I was very thankful for the timing of this, and then us all being here and trying to make sense of it, and Ben putting us out there, and then you walking us through it. So thank you.
Yeah, this is one of those major challenges, I think, at least it is for me. Looking at this and how do I take this in? What does my Zen practice tell me about this? What does it tell me I should do? I'm still working on it, as I'm sure most of us are. This was not a nice person. This was not. I mean, he treated people very badly a lot of times, and was under the guise of a conversation with them. These conversations, he would be very nasty in those, is my understanding. A lot of times, if you weren't agreeing with what he said. Don't know. I haven't done that. Can't say I've ever listened to Charlie Kirk at all. And certainly don't feel inspired to go back and listen now. So. Joe.
So now that I've thought about it a little bit more, I think there's a question here when you see the Mahayana teachings free from those ethical norms. The question is, whose ethical norms? My ethics, Charlie's ethics? I mean, maybe he thought he was doing a good thing, and that was his ethical behavior, and or mine, which are much different. And so it's freedom from all of that. We're all still fighting about that. And the
which tells you
Flower Sutra helps us get freedom from that stuff. It's like let go of all of that because of the question, whose norms?
Yeah. Well, and that's all the more why I say attaching to any norms. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Buddhist, Christian, Hindu, Wiccan, I mean, take your pick. You know, they all, if you make them into a thing, we're done. They have to be all of what Buddhism tells us to do is to keep looking at everything. It gives us guidelines. I mean, the precepts, the paramitas, gives us all of those guidelines of what to do. But then it says, you know, this ain't the gospel. We don't have one. Look at these. Think about them. Be good to people. And if this isn't being good to people, don't do it. I mean, that's, yeah.
So,
Mark.
just, the past day or so since this guy was shot and killed, I had never heard of him and did a tiny little bit of research, and like you, I was horrified by what I heard that he espoused. And then sitting here and just listening and reflecting with this chapter, just in the past day, I have come to the realization that a whole lot of, maybe hundreds of thousands, perhaps millions of people in this country and around the world were devastated by I mean, we should all be devastated by any act of killing, regardless of who it is, where, and circumstances. But that so many people were vehemently traumatized by this one individual person's killing, you know, just so devastated, and people that wouldn't comment about a whole lot of other shootings and killings comment about this one person, and then
There was a school shooting the same day.
yeah, and then
Nobody heard about it.
I go and do a little research, Google who this guy was, and I'm horrified by what he had said in this whole turning point, you know, that he started this organization, and so I think part of my practice is to be aware of my thoughts and feelings, and so I feel this like just a complete mind-boggling sense of how can so many people buy into this delusion, you know, it's like,
Yeah, I agree.
and then I start feeling like anger and rage and you know, and fear, a whole lot of fear, like, wow, if so many people support this guy and people like him, then where are we headed? Where are we heading? And so, and then I take a step back, you know, and I think, okay, what do? We sit with what is. This is it. This happened. This person existed. My feelings of anger and rage and fear and all of it isn't going to change anything. Not going to, you know.
Yeah.
Okay, except was it Mike who said, you know, about practicing compassion and love, and it's like, whoa, that seems really, really hard.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, like, no, don't want to do that. But yeah, just sort of sitting with it and sitting with it and sitting with it. Just sort of kind of, I don't know, brings my temperature down, my blood pressure, everything, you know, just like, okay, it is what it is. Anyhow, I don't know where else to go with that thought, but.
Yeah, no, I think I hear what you're saying. I think these are the kinds, at least for me, and I've talked to enough other people that I know for most people, this is the hard one. This is when, you know, if you want to, well, I was going to say if you want to extend this to your family, but that's not always necessarily good. But you know, as we want to extend this to people that we care about and that we're feeling good about, that's not so hard. When we come to Charlie Kirk, we come to Donald Trump, we come to add to your own list of that. It's real hard to do this practice, at least it is for me, and to really get a good solid handle on everything I'm feeling about it. I know what the superficial stuff is, but sitting with it and understanding where, you know, where does this threaten you? Where does this, why, how does it make you afraid? How does it make you angry? You know, all of that stuff. But even then, I'm still angry. I'm still afraid. Yeah, Joe.
What? Oh,
So I'm reminded a little bit of every time I meditate every day, just before, when I first initially start sitting, I go through a few things, and dropping the hindrances is one of them. And the hindrance of hatred, hindrances of restlessness and worry, hindrance of doubt. That's 3 out of 5 right there that, you know, we're dealing with when we think about things like that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that's good. Mike, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was just gonna connect right where Joe's going, and what Mark was saying about that fear and anger. Um, you know, for a practice that trains us to think about not necessarily the effects, but the causes and conditions, and that fear and anger that's out there, as Ben was pointing to, in just this insane system that we're all trying to survive in, and that's generating these waves of anger and desperation and fear. So for me, the only, and I don't know if this helps anybody else, but looking at the causes and conditions of, there has to be something I have in common with Charlie Kirk or Donald Trump. And one of those is there's, a lot of anger and fear about how our world works. And granted, I'm not rationalizing or forgiving some of the vile actions or whatever, but as a starting point, a beginning of a bridge to try and extend some meta kindness practice to these individuals, it's a start. But the training of the causes and conditions is something that I've been falling back on quite a lot lately. Not that it's always making sense of it.
Well, I think those are things we have to fall back on. I mean, I don't know. That has to be the beginning if we're going to understand where we're at. So yeah, I totally agree. Randy, I'm sorry, Mike. Did you have more? Okay, go ahead.
I don't know if I'm still open. My mic is on. One of the things I think about is that, especially about people who I don't like, is I had a friend who died last year, and she left this on the planet with me anyway, that send light and love. And I think about our president, and oh my God, I just come up with all kinds of swear words, but then, that's what we have to do. We have to send light and love.
Yeah, I think so. Any other thoughts?
Even when the other, I don't want to say the other side, but I can't think of another word. Even when they or whoever are sending darkness, like sending light and love, despite the fact that others might be reciprocating with darkness, hate, anger,
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many people out there that think on both sides, conservatives who think liberals are full of hatred and, that we're all thieves and terrible thing, and vice versa. I have a lot of friends who think, the complete opposite. Republicans or the far right are evil, and it just. But
Yeah.
I thank you, Rannigan, for that reminder about just, sending light and love, and meta despite.
Mike, would you like to repeat your comment? I saw it on the screen, but I think for the benefit of those here.
Kindness is the new punk. I've seen that phrase a few times, and it makes me think of Brad Warner and his punk roots of Dharma practice. But It really is. I mean, it's a radicalism of our day. I think the Dalai Lama said something about that: kindness and compassion. Unqualified kindness and compassion is the radicalism of our day. So, welcome to the club, everybody.
Dharma gates are endless.
Yeah, the one of the quotes that I heard from the Dalai Lama is that somebody asked him the essence of his religion, and he said kindness.
Mm. That's good.
Yeah.
So, anything else? Okay, I see no hands raised on the screen or here, so let's chant out. Ready? I vow to myself and to each of you to commit myself daily to the healing of our world and the welfare of all
beings,
to live on earth more lightly and less violently in the food, products, and energy I consume, to draw strength and guidance from the living earth, the ancestors, future generations, and my brothers and sisters of all species, to support others in our work for the world, and to ask for help when I need it, to say with daily practice that clarifies my mind, strengthens my heart, and supports me in observing these vows. Thanks for being here tonight, everyone. And
Thank you, John.
Yeah, thanks.
oh, she didn't go away.